Welcome to Blue Talks.
Good morning. I'm going to start with a question for you. Have you ever felt stuck? Might you be stuck right now and maybe not even know that you're stuck? Today I want to talk to you specifically about one step in a 9-step framework that I discovered while working with a life coach for a year. That step is confronting the situation and the power of confrontation in helping you to get unstuck. One specific story that brings me to the place of understanding the power of confrontation when we feel stuck started when I landed my dream job as a professor of practice. As a little girl, I used to play with my brothers and my little sister and the neighborhood kids, and I would get them all gathered in the backyard. And we would sit underneath a tree, Indian style. Not me, I was the professor. I would teach them. I was preparing for my future. So, in the fall of 2019, when I landed my dream job as a professor of practice, my sister said, of course you would be a college professor. Up through that point, I had been a practitioner of public relations for more than a couple decades. So incredibly excited about this new opportunity, being inside the classroom with inspired young minds, trying to figure out what they wanted to do as a career. I had the opportunity to pour into them. And I loved it. I loved the challenge of walking into a room full of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, some wearing sweatsuits, some looking like they might fall asleep in the classroom. And it was my job to keep them entertained for the 90 minutes that I had their attention. I'd wear tennis shoes to class because I'd move up and down the aisles. We'd put up whiteboards. We'd use sticky notes. We use little dots. I'd have them talk about what they were writing live right there in the classroom. So when it was time for me to get my evaluation and meet with my dean, after all of the hard work that I had poured into making my lectures just right, and that evaluation was average, I felt a bit heartbroken. It felt a bit demoralizing. And up through that point, I was trying to figure out what exactly do I want to do with my career? Do I want to stay in the classroom? I was playing around concurrently with doing some consultant work as part of building a business. And I lay on my office desk at my home office with my head in my palms. And my husband walked in, stood in the doorway, and he said, "Are you sure you want to still keep teaching? You seem to set on fire when you have an opportunity to work with your clients. You seem to really love the idea of entrepreneurship, the flexibility, the freedom, you getting to create your own path." And that's exactly what I did. I love teaching, so I still teach one class, but I took my husband's advice and began to start really pouring my heart and soul and energy into building my PR firm. So what I realized is that my husband was challenging me to confront my situation. I think sometimes we feel powerless. And the most common way we give away our power is by thinking we don't have any. That's a famous quote from Alice Walker. Many of you are very familiar with Alice Walker. She is the author of the movie The Color Purple. And we all know the story of Celie and Nettie and Mr. And Celie had to come to that point too, where she had to discover that she had her own power. Where do you feel stuck? Or where might you not even realize that you're stuck at this very moment? I love to write. I've been a writer since I was about 9 years old. When I was in the 5th grade, my 5th grade teacher gave me an empty page book. It had a red cover on it with a paisley design. And she said, "You're one of the best writers I have in this class. I want you to fill this book." So serendipitously in 2006, I met Angelia White. That was her name then. Today she's back to her maiden name, Angelia Stone. Angelia did not have a background in journalism at all, but she had a dream. And it was to start a national lifestyle magazine targeted toward women, and she did it. Somehow one day, an email came to me while I was at work. I worked for the federal government at the time doing public affairs, and it was an email about a new magazine that was a lifestyle magazine, and I didn't know the person who had even sent me this email or how they even got my email, but because I love to write and I wanted an opportunity to be able to express my creativity beyond the work I was doing for the federal government, I sent a response back to the person who had emailed me to find out, "Are you looking for any freelance writers?" And they were. Angelia has given me so many opportunities as a writer, especially and particularly when I was in my 20s. I've had the opportunity to interview Grammy Award-winning gospel artist, one of my favorites. One of her songs was sang at my wedding, Yolanda Adams. I've had the opportunity to interview Will Smith's ex-wife, Cherise Zambino. I've had the opportunity to interview a number of other very fascinating people, including additional celebrities. What I did not know about Angelia, because she's this amazing woman who followed her dreams, is that she was going through her own situation in her personal life that required confrontation as well. She had been in a decades-long marriage that she was really unhappy in. She really felt unfulfilled in. She talked to me personally about that relationship being one that didn't pour into her. And her fear, not wanting to separate the family. She had 3 children. Not wanting to disappoint her family, not wanting to disappoint God, that she stayed in that relationship for way longer than her heart told her she should have. So in 2015, she made a choice to confront that situation as well. She made the decision she'd been trying to avoid for more than a couple decades, moving back in with her mother. At the time, her son was a teenager, and as she tried to move through life and fill the gap of not having that second income and paying all of her expenses, her mother was all too happy to have her at home. She enjoyed the company. She enjoyed her grandson, who was also there with Angelia. Angelia had reconnected with the love she had in high school. They found each other on social media. So she was really comfortable in this new space with trying to rebuild her life, living with her mother. And then one evening, during one of their conversations, he confronted her. He said, "Angelia, I'm going to say something to you that I know you're not going to like, but I'm going to say it out of love for you." And then the words came that put her into tears, but set her into action. He said, "You have got to find a way to get off of your mama's recliner and rebuild your life." Perhaps a little bit more colorful than that. But she said those were the words that put her in motion. Him confronting her and her having to confront herself. So within months, she did it. She found an apartment. She got a new job, and she got moving. She got out of that space of feeling complacent, of having somewhat of a pity party for herself. Confrontation can be just what we need to get to the change that will set us in motion. I want to share a few stories about confrontation that you may be familiar with, because again, we're going to talk about some folks that we've seen in the news quite a bit, a couple celebrities. One of my favorites, Viola Davis. Viola Davis grew up in Connecticut in extreme poverty conditions. Her family lived in a rat-infested apartment. She talks about the urine smell that she remembered in her home on a daily basis. She talked about going to school smelling like urine because they couldn't afford to wash their clothes regularly. She talked about the fact that the conditions she grew up in weren't necessarily conditions that were conducive to going after a dream like being a Hollywood star. But she did it anyway. She graduated from Juilliard, and Viola Davis is the first Black woman to win an Emmy Award with a lead role in a drama series ever. So I'm going to take you to that scene. Viola Davis was sitting in a crowded auditorium when she heard her name called at the Emmy Awards in 2015. And the look of shock and disbelief on her face as she gathered herself in her long, floor-length white gown, bedazzled in black glass beads, and she shuffled her way to the stage to accept her award. And she held up that Emmy Award. She looked out into the audience and she said, "In my mind, I see a line. And over that line, I see green fields and lovely flowers and beautiful white women with their arms stretched out to me over that line. But I can't seem to get there, no how. I can't seem to get over that line." And then she told the audience that that was a quote from Harriet Tubman from the 1800s. And that here we are today in the 21st century, and the only thing that separates Black women from every other woman is opportunity. And through that point, before she got that role that led her to that Emmy Award, she had been relegated to roles as maids and behind-the-scene characters that would have never allowed audiences globally to see her true talent. That was the way Viola Davis expressed her battle cry that let the world know it's time to confront this. She and her husband started their own company that paved a way for writers of color, actors of color, producers of color to be able to experience roles that allow them to express their true talent and capability. Confrontation can be the pivotal tool that creates the change we need to create the life we want that aligns with our true values. So here's some guiding principles for effective confrontation. I'm talking more now at that granular level, at that micro level that each of us potentially experiences when we really, really, really need to get honest with ourselves about whether we are living a life that is aligned with our values, that we are speaking up when we see injustices within our own sphere of influence. You want to be able to advocate, express what you need, express what you're feeling. Active listening, if we're talking about on an interpersonal level. Sometimes miscommunication can happen, misperceptions can happen, and we need to understand if we are really perceiving things the way that they're intended to be perceived. We want to use respectful communication because we don't want to get into a defensive mode that shuts the other party off. The state method is a method that comes from the book Crucial Conversations. It's another framework that you could potentially consider when your time comes for confrontation. You want to start with sharing the facts, getting those objective facts together to be able to articulate them. Tell your story. coupled with the facts. Again, ask for the other's perspective to avoid miscommunication. Talk tentatively. It seems as though what I think I hear you saying is, test out what you said. Have the person repeat it back to you. You repeat it back to the person. Let's try and understand one another. Some additional foundational skills to consider that can help you build that assertiveness muscle. Negotiation is a big one for me. I'm a big Nebraska Furniture Mart shopper, and whenever I go into the store, I always ask, is that the best price you have? Is it possible that we could get a lower price on this? Building your assertiveness muscle will help you face confrontation. Public praise, private criticism, making sure it's the right time. And then self-reflection, regular self-reflection, to help you really understand whether you're in a situation that you need to address or whether there are some other potential opportunities. I am Monique Farmer. I am a creative, self-assured, resourceful, strategic leader who is bold, faith-focused, and particularly bold in the face of fear. I am the author of the award-winning book, Chart Your Path, a 9-step method to getting unstuck. I challenge you to confront the thing that is keeping you stuck. I appreciate your time today.